Woohoo! It's Club 1040 Day. Woohoo! I'm so excited to finally get to see and be with you all. We've been waiting for Club 1040 Day. It is October 4th, and it was 29 years ago, even though we're only 15 years. No, are you 20 or 20? We're really young still. And it's been 29 years since we've been on the mission field.
Yeah, so 29 years ago, Julie and I were, we had no money, and
That's a great way to start.
We had vision, barely got enough money to have the tickets. But I remember we got on the plane, and of all places, we were trying to get to Liverpool. And I remember the only flight we could afford was Air Canada. And we flew from Grand Rapids, Michigan, where we had been helping as assistant pastors in a church there that I grew up in. And then we flew, I think, through Toronto to Glasgow. And Pastor Allen, who's here, is Scottish. So the first place in British soil that we ever touched down on was Glasgow. And we had, and you know, back then it was, nowadays you can see the exact itinerary for your flights. That wasn't even on our itinerary. I had no idea we're going to make a stop in Glasgow. And then we ended up landing in Manchester. And then, you know, we were obviously spent the first couple of years in Liverpool. But in that first year, within a couple months, I think, we were asked to do a youth conference.
Yeah.
And at that youth conference, I met Pastor Claire's brother, Clive. I think he was a speaker at the conference. I was a speaker. And when he met, he said, would you come to Faith Camp and do the big youth portion of Faith Camp? 800 teenagers there. And so that was my first encounter with Kingdom Faith Ministries, Faith Camp.
Mm-hmm. And Pastor Colin Urquhart, your dad, amazing, your mom, your brothers. What an entry into everything UK. And it's continued to be part of our life, even to this day.
In fact, I think the first time Jonathan was dropped as a baby
was at Faith Camp.
Because I was in Kenya, and she had went to Faith Camp with an Anglican vicar and his wife, and we didn't really know what Faith Camp was really. And they invited you guys to that, didn't they?
They invited us, yeah. And I had Jonathan sitting up on a table in one of those chairs, and it flipped backwards, and he fell up against the tent, which was amazing, but he missed the pegs in the ground. And so
he was only maybe 5 weeks old.
Yeah, he was just tiny, but what an entry into our life. And, it has continued. It's changed our lives. So we're so grateful for Kingdom Faith, for you guys.
We spent 14 years in England.
Destiny to be with you guys.
And then the Lord put in our heart through prayer to move from Liverpool to Manchester. While we were in Liverpool, we worked with a guy that did mission work in East Africa, in Burma. But then we moved to Manchester to pioneer the church, and you guys moved about the same time. And so tell us a little bit about yourselves, your history. We've known each other since, can you believe it? We're celebrating 29 years, this Club 1040 Day. Tomorrow marks the beginning of our 30th year. Yeah. And it must be 28 and 3/4 years since we met you guys.
I think that's about right. One of the best things that ever happened was that Claire's brother, introduced us in that period when we had both moved to Manchester, but prior to our churches starting, and we met for a meal and got to know you guys a little bit. And then we met across all the pastors' meetings for the city. Do you remember there were gatherings because they'd watched the None Shall Perish book and video that Ed Savoso had done all those years ago about the cities needing more than one church, and the need for churches to dwell together, to pray together. And that led us praying together. And, that led us to 10 years that our churches grew separately. And we had so many interconnections, but the relationship built across that period of 10 years.
Yeah. So I was just going to show a picture, and I just accidentally closed the app that I was going to show a picture of us from back then. So I'm going to open that one back up. I closed the wrong thing. So you guys started your church, Kingdom Faith Manchester, and we started at the time World Harvest Bible Church, but now you pastor Go Church Manchester. Connect the dots between those two churches that were started and now Go Church Manchester.
Yeah. So, well, when we started and you started, we would go to everything that you did and support you. You would come to everything that we did and you would support us. And both of you, Matt and Alan, got together to pray. And I remember being in the hallway outside the room when you two were praying one day. And I was thinking, whoa, this is really powerful. And you asked Alan, you said to him one day, would you come and pastor our church? And Alan didn't even tell me because he was like, what?
I thought you were joking.
You thought, yeah, I thought he was joking. And then you repeated it. And then, Julie, you said the same thing to me. And then we began this journey of what if we brought the two churches together? Could we be stronger than we were? And, you know, you guys have always had that mission edge, haven't you?
Yeah.
To reach out. And I think for us, family was really important. And so actually you had two strengths. And so we came together 10 years later in 2007, and we married the two churches. It wasn't, you know, lots of people talk about merging. And when you think about it, you think about churches that are one that's weak coming together with one that's strong. And the real sense was that we both had strengths and we were coming together in a marriage, and that together stronger is how we would be and how we go forward.
Gifts and graces that integrated and multiplied each other. And I think that for us has been one of the keys, because over the years we had seen a number of people from Palestinians, and you'd seen Iranians. And so we'd had friendships that overlapped in terms of our ministry outworkings. We had translated Arabic materials that you took on a mission trip to Egypt. Those kinds of things had been the sort of the lead up to the merger of the churches, or the marriage of the churches. And to see our leadership teams, kind of each of them sort of laying down the initial vision for something even bigger. Mm-hmm. And for us, that shocked us, because we weren't really, we hadn't thought this way, but it then propelled you guys into Nigeria. I mean, that was around, as we merged the churches, you went on your first trip to Nigeria.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And if you want to hear a little bit of the story, I just got done with the very first, we're going to be doing these kind of interviews and conversations all day long for Club 1040 Day. Just really the purpose is to celebrate what God's done through our friends, families, and partners, people that have prayed. They meet people like yourselves, like Pastor Tokes in the last one. And he shares how from 80 students to now 6,600 students. And I didn't even realize this. He said they have over 1,000 non-paid workers or team members, volunteers. They have, he said, 5,000 local, financial contributors, partners, where 2,000 to 3,000 give regularly. And all that started with the seed of you guys saying, you know what, we're going to sow our church, Kingdom Faith Manchester. And even more so, I was always so blessed by your father, Colin Urquhart. And, as we started talking about this language of marriage, and kind of as a way, an analogy for how to bring these churches together, I'm like, we could do pre-marriage counseling, and we talked about the marriage ceremony and all that kind of stuff. And then I realized I need to go ask for your father's hand, of daughter church's hand in marriage. And so we went down there, and he was so gracious. He said, as we were praying as an eldership there, that they kept talking about how they kept getting our names, even though when they were praying for your church. And it was just a God thing all the way around.
Yeah.
And that seed you sown allowed us within a year to be relocated. Actually, it was, we started making preparation within about 6 months. God began to speak to us. We began to make preparation. And then by 2008, the church was formally turned over to you guys. Mm-hmm. But since what's happened since 2008 with the church?
Well, that's the exciting thing, is that one church is now 4 different churches. We like yourselves, we understood the need to raise leaders, so we raised assistant pastors, and so 3 of our assistant pastors will then have planted churches. The first is another Rhema graduate from Samoa, Matt and Fina Tapasoa, and they went over and established Bradford. Then we had this amazing Brazilian couple, Gleason and Marina, and they started a Word of Life down in London. And then the next one was Barney and Becky, and they've started Go Church in Liverpool. And we are just about getting ready in January to hand over to transition the leadership of our church here in Manchester that we both started, and just to our next assistant pastors, Mark and Simone Walker. They're going to be taking on that baton and doing the next part of the journey in January, because that's going to enable us.
What does that release you guys to do? So you're sowing a church again.
Yeah.
And I believe that we'll get similar kind of fruit. And as our producers just reminded me that this year the Lord spoke to us, no small dreams in 2023, and that the Lord's been speaking to us even since August of last year about multiplication of ministries, of leaders, and of resources. That's why we have the little multiplication symbol on the branding here. And that's exactly what we're talking about. You sowed a church, Kingdom Faith Church, and the church in Manchester grew, and since then has multiplied at one level. But now you're talking about going to a whole nother level of multiplication. Where we're not just a family of churches, but we're a family of churches who plant churches. Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, well, we have a big vision to grow, that Go Church will grow to at least 25 healthy churches in the next 10 years. There's an urgency, isn't there, at the moment, to see people not just saved, but we're told to go and make disciples. So it's not just go and have them make a decision for Christ, but they need to, it's becoming disciples so that they can go and disciple others. And you can impact where you live, but if a group of, and one by one, but if a group of you relocate to another city or town with the passion and heartbeat to go and minister, you can actually see so many more people saved. And we were thinking about this the other day. When you plant a church, you have such a heart for mission. It's an evangelism. It's right there. You haven't got comfortable. There's only a few of you, and if you're going to grow, actually we need to go, we need to speak, and there is this passion that comes. So
I remember those early days of a church. 50% of our church in the first 2 years was born again into the church, because we had to transfer growth. We weren't known by people, so we built a very small team of people that joined us, and like yourselves, we had to work incredibly hard on those.
Also, the average church size at that time was like 10 people in Manchester. So there's not a lot of transfer growth to transfer, is there?
No.
Exactly. And it's not healthy to grow just with health, not just with transfer growth. That's just rearranging the deck, and for us, with amongst the Iranian and the Palestinians, that was one side of the ministry, but among people from the city, that was the key part, that God was calling us to reach and become a multicultural church. And what excites me is there's over 30 different nationalities in our church, and that's been a reflection in each of the other churches established, that our church doesn't just represent our city, it's spearheading something in the city.
That's awesome. So 25 churches in 10 years is going to take a lot of highly skilled, highly trained leaders, especially if they're healthy churches, right? It's not just the pastors themselves, it's the leadership in every area. And you guys are partnered with Quest, which I think is pretty awesome. I'll let you talk about that in just a minute. And we'll come back to that. But also, Pastor Tokes mentioned DCPI, Dynamic Church Planners International, and then, of course, the Bible College. So talk a little bit about how church planning and the Bible College and training all kind of work together.
Yeah, so that's a really good, I mean, that's a massive question.
Yeah.
So obviously, through Rhema, we have been working in the UK, a number of church pastors that came together originally under you guys to establish Rhema in the UK. Claire and I, we had trained under Colin Urquhart at Kingdom Faith Bible College, but we were acknowledged and
we're now
ordained as within Rhema to teach and train. And so we were part to get in on the early stages of that in the UK. And so there's 210 Rhema graduates in the UK. So we're a little bit behind Nigeria. But there's 53 students right now at the moment that are training. And Claire and I, we've been asked within Rhema UK if we can help spark, promote, mentor, encourage people to actually plant churches who are Rhema graduates. We think there's currently 38 churches in the UK that have been planted by Rhema graduates.
Wow.
And DCPI, the Church Planting Essentials course, has actually become the Rhema teaching module on church planting. And that's it's a wonderful tool that Rhema has been using across the world, really, as it itself is obviously. Their vision is 5 million churches planted and 1 million have already happened. And that's the thing, it's a tool that church streams, church partnerships around the world can use to help actually take vision and make that vision into a plan that actually has a timeline, that actually puts some proper planning, works out milestones, works out strategic goals and tasks. And
it can be used by any model of church as well.
That's right.
And that's the point. It doesn't tell you this is how you should do it. It helps you with the vision that God has given you
to establish principles.
And that's what's so powerful about the teaching. It's incredibly practical, and Matt and Julie, Alan and I like practical things. We like to be really practical.
Yeah.
So, it's pretty exciting to think about. You mentioned Nigeria and the thousands of students and graduates, and then in the UK, the same, the hundreds of graduates, and how that has then a knock-on effect to the ability to be able to see churches planted. And churches are what we know create long-term generational change. And we've seen the history of how these churches that have been started, like the one that you're pastoring now, it was started, it's grown, it's then planted other churches out of it, it's continued. And you guys have seen, and we've watched it happen as well, the children that were born in church are now, young adults getting married and then eventually having children. And that's an exciting thing to see because it's cross-generational and it changes culture where it's at. That's what church is meant to do. Where the Bible colleges are about fast-tracking leadership development.
Yeah.
I remember back when we started the Bible college there in England, I would jokingly say as a way to promote it within churches, as I would say, especially in our own church, I didn't say it in the other church, but is that, like the equivalency of coming to Bible college and setting aside that time for a couple of years is like going to church for almost 20 years. 2 years in Bible college training is so intensive. It builds so deep. There's so much that goes on. Like, I know I was just looking at the, what we're asking the students to do here in Beirut, Lebanon. And by the end of it, they will have done, 100 students times 200 hours of practical ministry. That's 20,000 hours of practical ministry divided about 20,000 hours divided among about 15 or so churches here in Lebanon, because that's the number of churches that form the student body.
Yeah,
that's a lot of volunteer ministry. And that's just that part. Then they have 600 hours of classroom. They have an additional, hundreds of hours. We're even, on a daily Bible devotional that they do as a part of their participation grade. So, I mean, they're literally doing like 1,000+ hours of coursework related to their training over 2 years.
And they're catching something as well, aren't they? That it's not just the teaching. The teaching is the head knowledge side of it, but they're actually catching the spirit of faith, that pioneer mindset, the fact that we can actually transform cities and villages and our regions and actually set up new ministries that are actually going to change the destiny of our kids. That's what's in Bible college. It multiplies things in a short space of time, doesn't it?
It sure does. And a part of that is because people like yourselves that have decades of ministry experience. If I add up all the decades of ministry experience of the instructors that are coming literally from around the world to teach in the Bible college here, it's centuries worth of ministry experience that a student gets to participate in within a 2-year period and glean off of that, both through the impartations of the anointing and from the wisdom that comes from the word. Revelation comes from the word. So I want to mention before we go any further that, as I mentioned, is starting. The Bible college is launching here. It's exciting. The charter class, Friday night. We have 90 registered students, and we're going to be opening the intake for a little bit longer. So we believe we'll have more than 100 by the end of the year. And if you consider that in context, there's about 5 to 6 million people in Lebanon. In England or the UK, what is there, 65 million or something in the UK?
Yeah, that's right.
And they say about 5% on average across maybe are believers in the UK, which that's why we need so many more churches. You're talking about millions upon millions that are not believers. Well, here it's, crazy percentages when you think about 5,000 people against 5 million people are believers. Yeah. And about of those 5,000, maybe 1,000 of them are Pentecostal believers. And so to have almost 100 students in the in this charter class is a huge percentage, almost 10% of the Pentecostal believers in the entire country. That's going to radically change the church in this country.
Can I just say something too? They're Arabic speakers, and we're concentrating on 22 nations, and most of these nations are Arabic speaking. And if we just realize we are planting our first Bible college all together in the Middle East, talk about reaching this final frontier, this unreached people group. Arabic speakers, Matt and I, you and Pastor Claire, you can only go so far and do so much. But these Arabic speakers, God is just downloading such revelation into their hearts. And I believe it's just the beginning of this 1040 window being reached in the Middle East. So what a privilege we get to start this and be part of a mighty army that is going to go throughout these nations, speaking the language of these nations.
Yeah. That's so right. In the same way, when we went to Bible college, about 70% of the tuition was paid by partners. We just got done. If you heard the interview with Pastor Tokes, we talked about the investment that's being made there to keep tuition low. And it's the same to some degree in the UK. But here, the economy is such and the church is such that it's really hard for the church to be able to sustain any kind of support to a Bible college like this. So even though all of our ethos is we want everything to be self-governing, self-funding, and self-replicating, there's this CLUB1040 has historically been has sown this seed. Like even in the UK, we had the advantage because of our partners that, well, first of all, legally, because we didn't have a visa where we could work in country, we had to have partners, which sometimes made it hard. But the advantage is that we were able to give full-time effort to see the church established because we didn't have to get a side job. And here, there are so many people that want to be trained, but they don't have the resources to do it. So we're inviting our CLUB1040 partners and friends and anyone that's watching this to scholarship these students. So The scholarship is $78 a month times 24 months, or you can do a one-time donation towards the scholarship, or you can give any amount. You can give $1 a month for 24 months, you know, or you can give a one-time donation. But to make it work, the overall budget divided by 100 students and then minus what they have paid is $78 a month times 24 months. And so in order to do that, you can see there on the screen, it's you can text Lebanon 1040 to 71777 and just follow the details there, or just simply go to the Club 1040 website after this, and right on the homepage, there's Lebanon Bible College. You can see the information. There's more information there, and follow that. But before we sign off here, I have a couple old pictures that I wanted to show from back. I don't have the funny ones I was looking for, I was able to find, but I've got a few that I can show. So this is way back in the early days, me in Kenya, Julie in Kenya. I remember what a Kenyan guy said to her.
So good to see an American carrying something on her back. Working is what he said. A foreigner, yeah.
Yeah. So then anyone wants to connect or follow in any way, our social media is there. But then I've got, this is us, very early days. Look at those little babies. This is a map. I've just grabbed something real quick. I want to show a few pictures. This is a map of the 22 nations that we're targeting. This is October 5th, 1994. It's actually should be October 4th, because we were October 4th. This is an LAX airport, and we then ended up in on the 5th, ended up in the UK. Yeah. We started in Liverpool. This was the first Bible college that was started in Kenya. We had time in Burma. Then this is Jonathan, travel, have child, will travel. Early days.
Praying for our partners. Thank you, God.
Starting the church in the very, very early days.
Some of our Iranian brothers.
And the ministry's still doing that, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. With 9 baptisms just a couple of weeks ago.
That's amazing. Yes.
And many materials translated into Farsi, which is such, amazing effort.
And then the church grew. And this is a picture of the church.
This is the picture of the Go Church Beirut, Pastor Allen's church. Yeah.
Go Church Manchester. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Thank you so much for everything that you've done sowing. And, as we took steps of faith to turn over the church in 2008, you guys were there 100%, being supportive in every way possible, whether it was in practical ways or whether it was financially, and especially in prayer, of course, all those ways. And it's exciting to see what God's doing now with you guys as you step into that next season. And I believe that you'll see those 25 churches in 10 years.
That's it. 5 and 10.
I believe it.
Amen. Yeah. It's great to be taking these steps. And I think that's what we need, partnerships like this. It sparks us to go further, because it's so easy to settle. And we talk about mission drift. But actually, when we stay focused and we focus one another, we help each other to go further.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Well, we love you guys. Thank you so much. Don't forget, if you want to be a part, this is Club 1040 Days, all about celebrating what you've already been accomplishing. And we're going back like 30 years to talk to Pastor Allen and Claire, because, we have partners that have been with us literally from the very beginning, 30 years. Isn't that crazy? 1994, October, I remember we've got like 3 partners still from that very, very starting time. In a number of them, more than 20 years. But it's because of partners like you that are watching that Pastors Allen and Claire have been able to, bring their supply of grace together with our supply of grace. And together we saw that church grow. And then now they're stepping into new things and training and church planning. All of that's because of you partners. If you want to see that same kind of thing happen in the Middle East here in Lebanon, then please do check out CLUB1040.com. And also a big thing you can do to help us is share these things wide and far. It'll get out to somebody who God can use this little interview to speak to, who's supposed to connect with the vision.
Thank you so much, Pastors Alan and Claire, for spending time with us this morning and just being by our side the whole way. You know, we can't do what we do without you. And, you know, I just want to say personally, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Our life is better because of you.
Yeah.
Oh.
Thank you, guys.
Bless
Love you
you.
guys.
Bless
So
you.
is our
Thank you.